Okay, body of Christ, I want to talk about altars in the house today. So, as you know, hopefully you know, that there really is no time in the spirit. So once an altar has been erected in a space, it needs to be torn down. It needs to be destroyed in the spirit. So it doesn't matter if it was erected 500 years ago. It doesn't matter if it was erected 5 years ago. It's still in operation. If it's in your space, if you're a renter, or even if you bought and you haven't cleansed that house and destroyed altars that have been erected, that can speak against your space, because there is no time in the spirit. The spirit doesn't say, oh, well, Tracy moved into that house, so we're going to stop working on her behalf. No, no. Once they have a foothold, it's done. They're in there. Okay. And I learned the hard way with that. So I ended up I owned a salon and I sold it, and I bought a new one in a different state. And the place, I got very screwed over on the deal, and the place would not prosper. The energy was so heavy in the place. It was so heavy. And it happened to be in the town square in Georgia. It's a little town square. And there was a lot of Freemasonry and a lot of slavery. That's where one of the statues was torn down. And this building was so old. It was, hundreds of years old, where the shop was that I bought. And it was so heavy and so dense, and I couldn't, the Lord was the one that guided me to go here. So I was so confused, like, Lord, every time I was like punched. It was like I would get beat up in the spirit every time I would really go there. And I'm thinking, Lord, and I kept asking, are you sure this is what you want? Because I really feel, something. And he's like, yes, it's my will. So I'm like, okay. So my discernment was just going nuts every day when I would go in there. And finally, I had just had it. I was fasting. I was like, Lord, something is not right. The place is not prospering. The spiritual energy is so heavy and dense, and nobody really was prospering there. And then finally, after really pleading, begging, fasting, praying, the Lord revealed there was a lot of Masonic activity. There was tunnels connected to the Masonic temple, because it was all in the square, and my business was right on the square in the buildings. And it was just heavy, heavy, heavy demonic. And he showed me all of the altars that had been erected, from the 1700s and on. And I had to go in and break all the altars. And that's when he showed me you have to break them. They don't just break because Tracy's moving in, make the way. I mean, I would love that, but no, that's part of us taking dominion and authority in the spirit. That is why the Lord gave us that, because we have to go in and we have to possess the territory. So I had to go in, I had to destroy all of the altars, I had to pray like mad to clear the energy out of that place. It was heavy and it was dark, and it was like a cloak. And finally it prospered. Finally, actually, by the time I was leaving the place, I was moving, it prospered. And there was a flow, because there was no flow. The flow was zilch. And I know, because the Lord has always blessed my businesses. I knew something was not right, but this was his training for me to train me up. So this happens in people's houses, especially if you rent new places. You have to go in, you have to anoint, and you have to break any altars that have been erected, or they will speak against you. And it is hard as a renter, because the landlord sort of has dominion over the place that owns it. So, you really need to be on guard, really discern the spiritual nature of the place before you rent it, because you can ask for God's grace, but you don't necessarily have jurisdiction over the place because you're not the owner, And the landlord I was involved in, I really strongly believe he was Masonic. So that kind of clued me into what I was dealing with, because most everybody in the building that were in the other spots were all Masons and Eastern Stars. So heavy, heavy, heavy Masonic territorial spirits there. So that was what I was battling against. Like usual, like I've been in deliverance 8 years, and it's always that type of spirit you're dealing with typically. But I hope that helps. If you're having issues that you can't get, done at your house, or if there's just, something that you might want a session, I offer one-on-one prophetic counseling and deliverance, and have ebooks, free prayer downloads in the Stand Store. The link is in the bio. I hope this helps. Be blessed.